thrilled that you've brought the Southern California weather with you to London.
I tried. It didn't work.
So chief compliance officers, they face a huge barrage of challenges. They're operating in an era of increasing regulation around the world, often varied regulation around the world. And I want to start by asking you about what your clients are finding when it comes to that regulatory environment and those clients that operate in different jurisdictions, how challenging it is for them to try and find the right balance across their business units, their business divisions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a lot, right? And so if you work in multi-jurisdictional type of organizations, right, it's something that you always have to keep your eye on. And why? It's because the regulations are advancing at different speeds throughout the different jurisdictions, right? And it's not that you can't keep all the regulators happy at once, but as a former regulator, you can't. Because it's not just the requirements, but it's the evolving expectations and how you in the organization want to try to standardize it to keep it consistent and simple, if there's a simple way, while still meeting the different requirements across the globe. So it's a lot.
Are there regions in particular, industries in particular, where you would say that there are unique challenges from the regulatory environment? Can you share some examples?
Sure. I mean, some of our industries with the highest level of regulatory requirements continue to be our financial services, specifically our banks, also life sciences, healthcare, and my goodness, TMT is coming online with all of the internet regulations that are coming at them really, really quickly. In financial services, though, in particular in banks, one of the things that you continue to see is how they're going to meet the requirements, and again, multi-jurisdictional, right? But around sustainability, around the different AI governance considerations that are coming online, and no one's really too advanced in that space at all. And so those are some of the areas where right now it's competing priorities and competing views that you have to meet in that environment.
And what about the standards being set between different jurisdictions by different regulators? How challenging is that to try and figure out where you're going to essentially allocate resources?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right? Everybody does it every day. No, it's so hard. And it's hard because if you look at, and just continue to pick on some of the additional things with sustainability or cloud, right? There's different views from the regulators in regards to what can move, at what pace it can move, and how you need to make sure that you have compliance considerations. And the compliance considerations are typically seen as checks and balances versus advancing, versus keeping the consumer at keeping the investors at bay and making sure that you have the right growth around it too. So it is a challenge.
And when CCOs go to talk to their CFOs, to other members of the C-suite to figure out spending priorities, there are some economic constraints, depending on where you are in the world at the moment in particular. There are obviously pressures from shareholders. How do CCOs, from your experience, go about making those spending decisions in 2024?
Yeah, each organization is a little bit different depending upon the role of the chief compliance officer. Some chief compliance officers traditionally just sit in the second line, right? Some chief compliance officers have the opportunity to sit across the first to the third line or an enterprise type of view. The conversations with the C-suite, though, need to be seen as partnership and in coordination with. We understand risk in compliance and regulations, but it's understanding the risk and how you're able to monetize it, right, for your CFO, for your CEO, but then also make sure that you hit the compliance requirements of the regulators. So in my view, it's really that coordination along with the partnership at the executive level to understand the value and the role of compliance. Easier said than done, again, because it's seen as a cost center in some cases, not that profit center. So it's that coordination that's truly key.
And leaving aside kind of headcounts and expertise, focusing on investment in tech in particular, where's that balance today amongst your clients between CCOs looking to improve their tech, improve their systems, and their ability to do that financially?
Right. Top of mind, because to a lot of folks, if you have better connectivity in your technology, you're able to understand that enterprise view. You're also able to understand how to work on key metrics with your partners to show the value, the ROI of the role and whatnot. But tech without standardized process, tech without standardized data, analytical considerations is not going to advance an organization. So it's really making sure that you have that process in place and then go ahead and invest the dollars around it to have the technology work for you or enable your processes across the organization.
We're now past the pandemic, thank God, but it's clearly had a massive impact on all of us in different ways. And I wonder, for your clients trying to figure out what's changed over the long term when it comes to compliance, with people maybe working from home far more often, maybe less travel in some businesses, maybe more in others. What's happening there in that space?
Right. It has been a balance, right? Certain industries, again, are calling their workforce back to the offices earlier than other industries. However, right now, I mean, even in my own organization, we're looking at what is the right balance between in-office, right? In-office, in my offices, or with our clients, and then also remote. Remote causes greater challenges in regards to fraud, cybersecurity that needs to be considered. Also just about the apprenticeship and the knowledge sharing that we see in the availability of having folks working side by side. You learn from others. And so that is a really unique dynamic that we really need to pay attention to for the workforce, because not only has the work continued to evolve at a pace that's completely been unprecedented, but the workforce and the skills and capabilities of that workforce, you can't hire someone with the same skills from 5 years ago to deliver on today in the same capacity, in the same manner. And so those things all need to change. And then how compliance adjusts to meet those requirements and challenges also needs to.
I want to come back to financial services. You said a lot of your financial services clients faced a challenging period when it comes to regulatory disruption. Part of the disruption in their industry also comes from startups, fintechs in particular, that tend to be a bit more nimble than, say, a legacy bank. And I wonder what difference that makes in terms of their ability to change their resourcing around regulatory changes compared to, I'm not going to name names, but a massive global bank, let's say.
Sure. The fintechs have been more nimble. Let's also call out that fintechs have been able to be more nimble because they don't have to play against the same set of regulatory requirements that banks have to, right? And for years, larger established organizations looked at fintechs as they're a flash in the pan. They're going to be gone tomorrow. And what I think was underappreciated in the fintechs is how much the consumers appreciated transparency, ease of interacting, right? And those type of things were not always necessarily restrained from the regulatory requirements that banks liked to say that they were restrained from. So to me, it's really an opportunity as you look at fintechs to see what's working and what's not working. And a lot of larger financial institutions have picked that up. Again, ease of consumer utilization along with perceived transparency, right? And so as you continue to look through some of those next steps, it's interesting to see what fintechs are going to continue to do as they evolve versus some of the larger financial institutions who are partnering with fintechs. They have that as a user interface to help facilitate, if you will, the loan application process, the credit card application process. You watch your dot on a screen. That's really exciting to a consumer. So,
Gina, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to hand back over to Nick Elliott. He's the head of the communities team at Dow Jones Risk and Research. He's also the global lead for this new council that we have here. So thanks so much.